The Littlest Cowgirls by Melinda Curtis. Prologue. Secrets. Gabby Kincaid loved them. They made her feel like an adult. Gabby was 12, a talker, and practically a Monroe. Yes, one of those Monroes. Her dad was marrying one. As such, she knew the Monroe history and a few important Monroe secrets. Gabby chewed on the rubber end of her pencil, reviewing the Monroes the way she carefully reviewed her homework for tests. She scribbled a word in her notebook. Money. The Monroes were wealthy. Or they used to be. Or maybe some of them still were. Laurel Monroe was pregnant and marrying Gabby's dad this weekend, but she didn't act stuck up or bossy up. Gabby glanced over to Laurel, who was sitting with her twin sister, Ashley, and their mother on the couch in the lodgepole inn. They were talking about the latest trend in fancy shoes as if something big and top secret wasn't about to happen at any moment. But it was. Gabby gnawed on the pencil eraser again. "Gabby, don't do that," Laurel said in a kind way, which pretty much summed up her approach to life. "That was no secret. I need a distraction." Gabby tapped her pencil on the check-in desk. Another word was added to the list in her notebook. History. Harlequin Monroe had been a total success story, kind of like King Midas. Oil, finance, movie making, yacht building, hotels. You name it. Harlequin had made money doing it. Harlequin had also been born in Second Chance, Idaho, where Gabby lived with her dad and ran the lodgepole inn. Though it was cozy, the inn hosted a lot of the Monroes when they came to town, and they complained it wasn't the Ritz, which was when Gabby had learned they didn't mean the Cracker. That still stung a little. But when it came to the Monroes, Gabby was willing to forgive, because of the next word in her notebook, secrets. A long time ago, Harlequin had bought the town of Second Chance. But he negotiated with folks living and working here, offering them the measly lease price of $1 a year. Why would he do that? Harlequin was dead now, so she couldn't ask him. And he'd left Second Chance to his 12 adult grandchildren, also without a good reason. Didn't he realize people would have questions? Gabby had questions. And people didn't always answer them, which was why sometimes she had to just sit silently at the check-in desk, pretending to do homework while she listened. And when she listened, she learned a lot of things, including other Monroe secrets. Because, yes, there were more. Like the secret that Laurel's twin, Ashley, who was a famous actress and often referred to as America's sweetheart, was going to make a Western movie right here in Second Chance next year. Although, she'd recently told that to reporters. So, it was no longer a secret. Bummer. Gabby picked at the end of her pencil, plucking apart the chewed eraser. That had been a good secret, too. But an even better secret was that Ashley wanted Wyatt Halford, the hottest of hot action stars, in the Western film with her. They were going to tell the legend of merciless Mike Moody, who'd robbed stagecoaches in these parts, stabbed Jeb Clark, the blacksmith, and had been killed by a rock slide during one of his escapes. Ever since Gabby was a kid, people would talk about merciless Mike and wonder what had happened to all his stolen gold. Well, a couple of months back, the Monroes had unraveled the truth behind the legend and found the bandit's gold. Which was way cool, and kind of a secret, too, since they hadn't officially announced it to the world. Gabby stopped destroying her pencil and stared out the window at the blue summer sky. Secrets. She loved them. But there was one Monroe secret that was bigger than them all. Wyatt Halford, dubbed this year's sexiest man alive, was Laurel's baby daddy. And he was coming here. To Second Chance. Today. Wyatt didn't know a thing about the babies that were on the way. Dad should be pacing. He was marrying Laurel on Saturday. She was nearly 30 weeks pregnant and could deliver twins at any time. And Wyatt was coming to the wedding. But was he uneasy? No. He was in their apartment doing the books. And the Monroes on the lobby couch weren't even fidgeting. Shouldn't their stomachs feel like they ate too much popcorn at the movies? Gabby's did. Wyatt Halford. Super mega crush. Was it possible Wyatt knew he was a baby daddy? Due to circumstances beyond Gabby's control, stupid laptop, it had kind of been posted on the internet, totally not her fault. That bit of information was down now, and Dad always said you shouldn't believe what was on the World Wide Web, so Gabby had been trying not to worry. But still. It also meant she had a secret of her own. Secrets were so hard to keep. The low sound of a large vehicle parking in front of the lodgepole and made Gabby's heart beat really, really fast. She ran from behind the check-in desk to a front window to witness the arrival of Wyatt, the sexiest man alive, greeted by Ashley, America's sweetheart. It was all heady, complicated stuff to lay on the shoulders of a 12-year-old. Especially one who had access to the internet and wasn't good at keeping secrets. Chapter 1. Ashley Monroe stood on the porch of the lodgepole inn with her best smile planted firmly on her face as she watched Wyatt Halford's assistant park their SUV in front of her. This meeting in Second Chance, Idaho, had been 5 months in the making. Her sister's future happiness hinged on this meeting. She tried to squelch the fluttery feeling in her chest that thought caused. Wyatt stepped out of the back seat of the SUV like the Hollywood royal he was, tall, proud, and with a casual appearance that was anything but casual. More like practiced and perfected. Apart from that cowlick that looked like it couldn't be tamed. There was the tan skin. Those scuffed black cowboy boots. He carried a black cowboy hat. All time-consuming prep and props to create the impression that Wyatt was a genuine rough-and-tumble cowboy who'd become a genuine rough-and-tumble action film star. She'd bet he'd never shot a real gun in his life. Or learned how to make little sports cars drift in circles, stopping on a movie mark. Or... Wyatt removed his sunglasses and glared at Ashley. Cue dramatic music. This man wasn't happy. And he wasn't trying to hide it. Ashley's feet suddenly felt as if they were slipping on a steep slope. She curled her toes in her black suede booties and glanced behind her. 3 females crowded the inn's front window, her mother Laurel and Gabby. Gabby was wide-eyed, cell phone in hand. Laurel looked worried, a crease in her brow. And Ashley's mother. Her disapproval was evident without so much as a downward turn of her mouth. As Ashley's agent, Mom felt there was more on the line for Ashley than for Laurel, and that Ashley's public image must be protected at any cost. And that was just it. For too long, Ashley had been the daughter the Monroes protected, the one everyone considered too fragile to safely navigate a Hollywood career alone. No more. She'd stand on her own now and face the fallout from her mistakes head-on. She turned toward Wyatt. He won't break me. Wyatt walked up the inn steps, sunglasses held on top of his head by that artfully created cowlick. He still carried that cowboy hat. I will not back down. Not when Ashley knew her course to conquer Hollywood as a producer-director could only be charted with smarts, professionalism and a whole lot of luck. No way was she going to let the highest-grossing actor of last year see her sweat. Begin as you mean to go on. Thanks for coming. Ashley stepped forward to greet Wyatt, rising on her toes to kiss each of his cheeks. And, yikes. Wyatt did the whole celebrity bit well. He even smelled good, like the scent of a lush green forest. Wyatt held on to Ashley's elbow with a light but firm touch. The look in his dark brown eyes. It hid nothing. Back down from nothing. How could I refuse the request to be your wedding date? Oh, that voice. So deep. So smooth. So dangerous. He was quite the package. No wonder Laurel fell under his spell. Even if it would only last 24 hours. Ashley was falling now. Standing too close, staring into his eyes too long. She could feel his magnetism. But she could pretend his charisma was a facade, a role he was playing, and resist. After all, Wyatt had been summoned here. Playing the part of the summoner, Ashley brushed a thumb over the summonee's cheek. His lightly stubbled cheek. "Goodness. You look like you're waiting for me to feed you your next line," she said, without so much as a tremble in her voice. And then she stepped back, grabbed his hand and led him toward the door. Anyone who saw them would think they were friends, maybe even dating. Through the window, Gabby held up her phone as if taking a picture. And Ashley, who was as camera-shy as Wyatt was rumored to be, had to work hard not to turn away. "Hang on." Wyatt planted those boots. "We need to talk about," he gestured toward Ashley's midsection. "He knows something." Ashley's smile became strained. She could feel a break in character coming, barreling toward her like an avalanche. And then her acting training kicked in, upholding that fourth wall between herself and her audience. "Breathe. Relax. Focus on the emotion you're trying to project. Calm." Ashley was calmer than a shallow pool on a hot summer day. No ripple of panic. No wave of guilt. "I saw something on the internet," Wyatt said in that hard, angry voice. "A post on an encyclopedia website about your sister and me. He knows everything." "Ashley, I've never met your sister." His brow furrowed, making him almost human. "It had to be a typo, your sister's name instead of yours. He thinks I'm pregnant. He knows nothing." To her credit, Ashley kept on smiling. She shifted her head, as if trying to get a handle on the meaning of his words. "Is there a question in there somewhere?" The door behind her opened. Laurel's cheeks may have filled out during the pregnancy, but her features were still nearly identical to Ashley's. Laurel patted her very round stomach and arched her very slim brows. "It'd be easier on everyone if we were more direct." So much for breaking the news to him gently. Ashley sighed and faced Wyatt. "That was no typo. You've met my sister." And surprise. Those two words fell flat, just not as flat as the ones that followed. "You're going to be a father." It was hard for anyone to throw Wyatt Halford off kilter. Mostly because, growing up, his father had excelled at shaking him to his core. Often people, especially those who knew who he was and recognized how powerful he was in the film industry, didn't make a run at him. "You're going to be a father." Wyatt was off kilter. Truth be told, he was so off kilter he didn't know where kilter was anymore. He allowed Ashley to lead him into the Lodgepole Inn, a 2-story structure built from rustic round logs. The least she could have done was invite him to a swanky hotel before springing this news on him. That, in itself, was suspicious. "You're going to be a father." Newsflash, this was a hoax. Wyatt clung to that thought the way he'd clung to a fake ledge on a soundstage during a scene a few weeks ago. He was being punked. Nobody punked Wyatt Halford. He glanced around, looking for cameras. Bingo! A cell phone in the hands of a girl with strawberry blonde hair and worship in her eyes. Wyatt assembled his defenses in what he hoped was an intense scowl, the likes of which he used when the villain in a film had taken his love interest hostage. The pregnant version of Ashley came to stand in front of him. She wore a fashionable gray dress that clung to her curves. It was hard not to look at the woman's stomach. It was sizable. "I don't believe we've met," Wyatt said to all that roundness, channeling the stern, cocky tones of Ian Bradford, the top spy he'd played in 3 films. "We've never been formally introduced." The pregnant woman hesitated. "I'm Laurel. And sometimes I take Ashley's place in public." "You're going to be a father." Newsflash, cracks discovered in Wyatt Halford's hoax theory. Wyatt resisted washing a hand over his face and tried to keep his gaze on Laurel's, tried to keep his spinning brain on the task at hand. Damage control. He'd been in that mode since someone had posted the Wyatt Halford Laurel Monroe baby news online. It had taken him days to get the post removed. And against his agent's advice, he decided he needed to accept Ashley's invitation to be her date at her sister Laurel's wedding. Why? Because he had to squash the rumor at its source. It can't be true. Ashley guided him to the lumpy couch and sat next to him, laying a hand on his arm. Her touch was a cool contradiction to her red-headed beauty. That date you thought you took me on. That was me, Laurel said bluntly. She placed her palms on either side of her belly. And the twin girls here are the result. Twins. Wyatt's mouth went dry and his concrete belief that this was a baseless rumor continued to fracture. A middle-aged, red-headed woman wearing a dress and heels more suited to Bel Air than a mountain hotel stepped in front of him. Our team has given this situation a lot of thought, and in terms of a strategy, we've decided. Wyatt's assistant, Jeremy, banged his way through the door, carrying Wyatt's luggage. The noise shook his attention loose. I'm not marrying you. He pointed at Laurel and then jerked free of Ashley's hold. Or you. I don't know what your game is, but you're not marrying anyone. A scowling man marched forward, putting his arm protectively around Laurel. No one's asking or expecting or even wants you to do that. What a relief. And yet Wyatt worried because the situation could still spiral out of his control. Your little dating game came at quite the cost, didn't it? A glare at Ashley was called for. This is no game. The middle-aged woman narrowed her eyes at him. He recognized her now. The short red hair. The fierce expression. She was Genevieve Monroe, Ashley's momager. We've brought you here to talk through the steps of how to explain this to the public and to the industry. We don't want anyone's future derailed by this news. Especially Ashley's. We want you to relinquish your parental rights to Laurel's babies. The scowling man must be Laurel's ever-so-lucky groom, Mitch Kincaid. Do we need to spring everything on him at once? Ashley asked in that deceptively sweet voice of hers. Look at him. He's in shock. She laid her hand on his forearm once more. The last thing Wyatt wanted was for Ashley to defend him. This mess was all her fault. She should be defending herself. He brushed her hand away. But maybe he was in shock. He couldn't seem to focus. Twins switching places, dang. And babies, plural. Wyatt had vowed not to repeat his father's mistakes and make a baby with a woman before deciding whether he wanted to get married or not. How's that plan working out for you? Was that his father's voice in his head? Wyatt gritted his teeth. We were all in shock when we learned the truth, Genevieve said. Sharply. But Laurel's about to give birth and a way forward needs to be finalized. At the check-in desk, the girl with strawberry blonde hair handed Jeremy a room key without taking her wide eyes off Wyatt. She'd be asking for his autograph any minute. She was the one member of this ensemble who wasn't contributing to the scene. The one contradiction to the scam the Monroes were trying to sell. I'm out. Wyatt stood. Nice try putting one over on me, Ashley, but not even your hack of a brother could write a screenplay this far-fetched. Jonah Monroe was well known for his smarmy teenage rom-coms. Wyatt signaled for Jeremy to reverse directions. Send all future communication to my lawyer. He couldn't get out the door fast enough. Wyatt. Ashley followed him to the porch, closing the door behind her. Hear me out. Where had shy, timid Ashley Monroe disappeared to? Where was the subdued actress who almost always wore pink in public and never had a bad word to say about anyone? This woman was dressed in a white blouse and black leggings. And she stood her ground as if she'd been doing so all her life. While he was running away. Wyatt squared his shoulders. He was Wyatt Halford and didn't have to explain himself to anyone. Except he would if word got out. If the Monroes confirmed to the world that announcement he'd had removed. They lived in a cancel culture. Granted, his bankability was largely based on his playboy image. But this. I was wrong to send my sister on a date with you, Ashley said levelly. I'm sorry about that. But you were wrong, too. You didn't call me back the next day. You didn't text. Or send flowers. What does that say about you? I'm not on trial here. Not yet. You are. You and your sister, and we're at a crossroads, Wyatt. Ashley cut him off smoothly. You don't want to be a father, right? This could be a public relations nightmare for both of us. Or you can just walk away. No strings attached. Part of him wanted to do just that. But only chumps grasped at solutions they hadn't reviewed with their lawyer. And that man in there. Laurel's fiancé. If those babies were Wyatt's, who was to say Mitch would be a good father? Kids needed good fathers. He knew that better than anyone. No. Wyatt wasn't signing anything. Goodbye, Ashley. He shoved his sunglasses in place and his cowboy hat on his head. Behind her, Jeremy hammered the door frame with their luggage on his way out. I'm sorry, Wyatt, but you can't go. She sounded apologetic, but adamant. Really? He stomped down the stairs. Why not? Because my cousin Shane removed your spark plugs. Ashley gestured toward the truck idling behind Wyatt's rented SUV with Shane at the wheel, right before he drove off. I'm not going to make excuses for him. He's gone rogue. Shane Monroe. Wyatt seethed. He hated that dude. He'd shown up on the set of Wyatt's film to hand-deliver a wedding invitation and a barely veiled threat about what would happen to Wyatt's reputation if he didn't make an appearance in Second Chance. Wyatt drew his cell phone from his jeans pocket faster than a sharpshooter in a gunfight. I'm calling the police. If you won't listen, that's your right. Ashley shrugged and turned toward the door, sidestepping Jeremy. Make sure the police spell your name correctly. It'll make it easier for the paparazzi to find us. Chapter 2. You knew I wouldn't have enough cell phone signal to call the police. Wyatt spun toward Ashley, taking the porch stairs two at a time, long legs quickly eating up the distance between them. Well, I was hoping your phone carrier was prone to low signal and dropped calls. Ashley lingered near the door, refusing to acknowledge her pounding heart, staying in character. If this were a horror movie, we'd send Jeremy down to the basement to access the only working landline. Jeremy sagged against the log wall of the inn, looking horrified. He didn't know there was no basement. Scowling, Wyatt continued coming toward Ashley, but he slowed. And then, of course, we'd send Wyatt Halford to find Jeremy's body. Ashley's chin was high. Her voice clear. Inside, she was trembling, every instinct urging her to flee. There'd be a scuffle with the unholy terror that's plaguing this mountain town. But Wyatt would live to see another day. Wyatt stopped in front of her, angry eyes only partially hidden behind those dark glasses. I am not amused. She shrugged. I come from a large family. 12 Monroe grandchildren. When we got together, which Grandpa Harlan frequently encouraged, there was a lot of drama. My grandfather taught me that you can face adversity one of three ways. She held up one finger. Hide in the basement and wait for the ghost to come find you. I take offense to that remark, Jeremy mumbled, having been the example in her metaphor to hide in the basement. She held up two fingers. Charge into the basement ready for battle. Wyatt crossed his arms over his chest. Or collect the facts and make a rational decision. Ashley held up three fingers. Wyatt smirked. In this film of yours, you be the plucky, bookish character who helps the star save the day. A sidekick. At this point in her career, there was no way Ashley was settling for a sidekick role that didn't benefit from a plot twist that made her the heroine on the last page. It depends on whose story you want to tell, Wyatt. Personally, I prefer the unexpected one. I get it. You want me to read your indie script? Wyatt heaved a sigh. You can't afford me, Ashley. Especially not now. Haven't you heard? I charge an annoyance fee. Jeremy glanced from the pair to the SUV to the woods, and then sat on a suitcase, seemingly settling in for the verdict of whether they'd stay or go. Let me be clear, Wyatt. Ashley pointed toward the door. The most important person in the world to me is inside this inn. Her sister Laurel, to whom she owed so much. It was Laurel who'd made it possible for Ashley to retreat from the world when the pressure of stardom became too great. Those twin switches had allowed Ashley a safe space but had driven a wedge between the sisters. Still, wedges didn't have to be permanent. I realize you don't want to be part of my project, Wyatt. But you have to be part of Laurel's, even if it's just to agree to step aside. A car made a slow stop at the intersection and then turned toward the heart of Second Chance. Wyatt kept his back to the vehicle, not even looking around. He had a reputation for vehemently protecting his privacy. And Ashley couldn't blame him. Adoring fans could make even the simplest activity in life a stressful production. The car was packed to the ceiling with luggage and pillows. The driver pulled into a parking space at the Bent Nickel Diner, 2 doors down. Wyatt gave the car a sidelong glance. Do you know how impossible this situation is to unravel? If word gets out, chances are one or both of us will be relegated to bit parts in B films and mediocre TV comedies. True. Ashley kept her voice just as low as his. But we've had a few months to wrap our heads around the challenge, and we believe we've found a solution. A way to ensure Laurel's happiness. It just so happened that their course of action, Wyatt giving up a claim to the girls, also protected Ashley's career. And his. We. Your team, he said sardonically. My family, she corrected gently. He scoffed, nodding toward the nearest window, where her mother, Laurel, Mitch and Mitch's daughter, Gabby, gathered. Ashley wished her so-called team wouldn't so obviously eavesdrop. There's been some anticipation about your arrival. And there's been a leak on your end. Then he said 2 words. The name of the online encyclopedia site that had reported Laurel's pregnancy with Wyatt. Ashley had her suspicions about the post. Her cousin Shane was the most likely choice since he was meddlesome when it came to protecting family. He'd traveled recently to South America to find Wyatt filming on location, where he'd floated the idea of Wyatt being Ashley's wedding date. Wyatt hadn't welcomed Shane with open arms, and the inflammatory post had gone up almost immediately afterward. Yeah, that had to have been Shane's doing. But Monroes didn't throw each other under the bus. Instead, she glanced significantly at Jeremy, trying to cast suspicion on Wyatt's team. Nice try. Wyatt shifted his weight, easing between her and the Bent Nickel Diner. But I have tight control of my staff. Take another shot at it. Whether on purpose or not, he'd hidden Ashley behind his broad shoulders, away from the hungry travelers in the parking lot. She shrugged. There's no point in casting stones. I enjoy casting a few stones. Wyatt's tone had regained its edge, and his body seemed to be expanding. Not the swell of an egotistical chest, but the bunching of muscles by an elite athlete. You can blow off steam at the river behind the inn, Ashley said. There are plenty of rocks you can toss. And if you're hungry, there's the diner. His features turned stony. Incredible talent, that. Lucky for you, Ashley continued, Chef Camden Monroe is cooking at the Bent Nickel Diner part-time. She leaned to the side to speak to Jeremy. They offer a to-go menu. Her movement brought her closer to Wyatt. His anger hadn't diluted the smell of a green forest glade. Such a tranquil impression. So at odds with the tumultuous man before her. Ashley smiled. Or you can stock up on food items from the general store. Keep in mind that the inn only has a microwave for guest use. Wyatt chewed the inside of his cheek. Jeremy, you've got to find me a nearby house rental. ASAP. Best of luck with that. Ashley reached for the door handle. Oh, and Gabby has a room ready for you. Apologies, but you'll have to double up. Like she was doing with her mother. Mitch's family was arriving soon, as were more Monroes. Wyatt covered her hand on the doorknob. His touch was gentle, yet strong. Ashley didn't move, soaking in the layers of his character as if she was reading a really good script. Under pressure, he seemed strong, steady and single-minded, although she'd heard he was also demanding, difficult and bad-tempered. Sharing a room with my assistant? Wyatt sked, lips close to her ear, warm breath tickling her skin. That's not how I roll. Gone was the instinct to push him away. In its place was the draw of a moth to an irresistible flame. There was a reason Wyatt Halford had earned the sexiest man alive title. In her experience, he was quite literally the sexiest man she'd ever encountered. Dave. Dave. Would you look? A woman called from somewhere near the diner. Isn't that Ian Bradford? I mean, what's his name? The guy who plays Ian in those films you like. The woman gasped. And that girl from that show we watched as kids. The redhead. Ashley something. Wyatt didn't move, but he seemed to shrink in on himself, as if doing so would make him invisible. Oh, he was vulnerable, all right. A man in need of soothing. Or shaking up. She had him right where she wanted him. Ashley would have smirked. If she hadn't given in to impulse, risen up on her toes and kissed him.
Previously, on the life and times of Wyatt Halford. He'd kissed Ashley Monroe on New Year's Eve in Hollywood. Or at least, he'd thought that woman was Ashley Monroe. That woman had been charming and soft, blushing when their eyes met, fitting the image of the former child television darling turned beloved rom-com star. He'd fallen for her the same way he'd fallen for the on-screen version of her. Growing up, her long-running television show had been his guilty pleasure. The Ashley Monroe filling his arms in Second Chance, Idaho, wasn't charming or soft. She kissed like a woman who knew what she wanted, who'd laugh at his jokes without blushes, who'd return the heat of his kiss unabashedly and wouldn't stumble over her own 2 feet trying to stay out of his way. Both versions of Ashley Monroe had bright red hair and a petite frame. Wyatt opened his eyes to stare down at this Ashley. Not that he stopped kissing her. He was a red-blooded man, for Pete's sake, not a fool. Get my phone out of the diaper bag, Dave, the woman in the diner parking lot said. Wyatt tensed. People intruding on his privacy wasn't his favorite thing. Ashley's hand curled around Wyatt's neck just as her eyes opened to meet his gaze. Her lips curled into a slight smile. All without breaking that heart-thumping kiss. He felt as hot as if he were still in South America. His arms had somehow managed to wrap themselves around her. His brain forgot to care about their audience. Your phone's not in the diaper bag, babe, a harried man's voice said. And Bobby needs to eat. We're going inside. Ashley's smile expanded, reaching her eyes. All without breaking the intensity of her kiss. Who smiled while kissing? Who knew he liked women who smiled while they kissed him? No. Geez, Dave. Come back here, the woman called out. We can sell that photo. Sorry, babe. No can do. Near the parked car, a door rattled open. A bell tinkled. A door clattered closed. Wyatt assumed that was the diner door. Someone made a sound of frustration and the door ran its lines again. Rattle, tinkle, clatter. And then everything slowed to a stop. The commentary. The smile. The kiss. Reality came crashing back. He wasn't ready for fatherhood. He wasn't ready to be knocked off his Hollywood pedestal by scandal. And he really wasn't ready for this version of Ashley Monroe, because he was very much afraid that this woman could upset everything in his apple cart. In the circle of his arms, Ashley took charge of the conversation the same way she'd taken charge of him with that kiss. You're not in Hollywood, Wyatt. And much as I'm trying to make you comfortable, this is my sister's wedding week. The lodge pull-in is all booked up. 2 twin beds are all they've got to offer. Wyatt's arms fell away from her. I'm not cowed by you or the Monroes. Her gaze lost its appeal. I wouldn't expect you to be. The only thing I ask is that you be my wedding date to help shield my sister and her babies from speculation. It seems far-fetched for you to be their father if you're with me at Laurel's wedding. For everyone's sake, we need the public, the press, and our peers to doubt the rumor. Ashley opened the door for Wyatt much the way he'd planned to open the door for her before she'd kissed him, because his mama had taught him manners, though he didn't feel like using them right now.
Wyatt Halford stood within touching distance of Gabby at the Lodgepole Inn, wearing cowboy boots and a cowboy hat. She should have been speechless. She should have held out her copy of that magazine with him on the cover, silently pleading for a signature. Instead, she was living up to her name as she came out from behind the check-in desk to show Wyatt and his assistant to their room. The kitchenette over there is for guest use. Microwave, fridge, sink, single-cup coffee maker. The coffee, tea, cereal and oatmeal are free and available 24/7. Gabby pointed toward the alcove as she hopped up the first few stairs toward the second floor. The Lodgepole Inn is old. I mean, really old. I've done a book report on it and my dad fought to have the spot declared a historical landmark. Not a minute too soon, Wyatt murmured over Dad's cautionary, Gabby. You'd think Wyatt's remark and Dad's warning would have shut her up. Nope. Your room has a fantastic view of the Salmon River, a meadow favored by a family of moose, and the Sawtooth Mountains. It's okay to be a tourist and take pictures. Gabby skipped up a few more steps, hopping to places where the stairs didn't squeak, because moving around the inn silently despite the floorboards was a talent of hers, and Wyatt should appreciate talent, right? Down at the end of the hall, you said. We can find our room. That was Wyatt's assistant, Jeremy. He was dragging all their luggage up the stairs under the watchful gaze of Dad and the Monroes. It's okay. Gabby hopped up a few more steps to the landing, turned and beamed down at them. I don't mind showing you where it is. What girl would complain about a few minutes more with Wyatt Halford? Wyatt grabbed a suitcase and a backpack from Jeremy and took the stairs 2 at a time. Oh. Gabby hadn't expected them to get up the stairs so quickly with all those bags. She sprinted toward the end of the hall. But the tour must go on. She wanted Wyatt to love her home as much as she did. Second Chance has a lot of history. My dad signed me up for a couple online courses this summer. To keep you out of trouble, he'd said. Although both of them knew trouble had a way of finding her. And I'm writing a paper on merciless Mike Moody, a local stagecoach robber who terrorized the territory. You know, the guy Ashley's film is about. Anyway, everyone in town has a different take on the legend, but I'm researching the facts. Not completely true. She was mooching some of Jonah Monroe's notes, the ones he'd used to write the movie script for Ashley. So, if you have any questions about him, I'm your girl. I'm your girl. Was that too much? Boy, it felt like it. Inwardly, she cringed. Which room is Ashley's? Wyatt marched right behind Gabby, as if the humongous suitcase was lighter than her laptop. I hear she snores. I want to be as far away from her as possible. The meadow room. We just passed it. Gabby gestured toward the door on the opposite side of the hall from Wyatt's room. And Ashley doesn't snore. She's too perfect to snore. Or to fall asleep while doing her homework. Never mind waking up to drool on her pages. And she's too perfect to walk into walls. And practically break her nose. Or drop her cell phone in the river. All flaws and calamities of Gabby's. Nobody is that perfect. Wyatt nearly stepped on her heel, causing Gabby to lose her balance and bang into the wall, where a stubby knot rose out from the log. Ow. Wyatt pulled up short, reaching to steady her. Are you okay? Wow. She's fine. Jeremy came to a halt behind Wyatt. He was tall and blonde and slender and scowling, and nowhere near as cute as Wyatt. No blood. No tears. He made a clucking noise as if Gabby were a horse and he wanted her to giddy up. Wyatt sighed and gave Gabby the kind of long-suffering smile that said he understood what an annoyance his assistant was. Gabby wanted to cheer, thinking about her celebrity crush and how she'd been right for months. Wyatt wasn't the jerk the Monroes had been saying he was. His assistant was. Here you go. She opened the door and stepped back. Wyatt thanked her and went inside. Jeremy snatched the key from Gabby's hand. Are the linens clean? Yes. Jeremy poked his nose into the room. I'll call you back up here if they're not. And the bathroom? He dragged the suitcase behind him, swinging wide. It's clean. Mortified, Gabby bumped against the far wall in her haste to get out of his way. Thanks. Jeremy shoved a $20 bill into her hand and shut the door behind him before she could even tell Wyatt to enjoy his stay. How rude. Gabby crumpled the 20 in her fist and marched back down the hall, not caring that her feet hit every creaky board along the way.
Chapter 3. What was that kiss? Ashley's mother spoke in hushed tones that matched the austerity of her conservative wool sheath. She'd hustled everyone into Mitch and Laurel's apartment behind the check-in desk as soon as Wyatt disappeared upstairs. That wasn't part of the plan. You're messing this up already. Look at Laurel. She agrees with me. Ashley met Laurel's anxious gaze. Her sister worried about Ashley too much. And Ashley ached because of it. Laurel deserved her own spotlight and not to be in Ashley's shadow. Her sister had chosen to shine in Second Chance. So if kissing Wyatt helped bring the spotlight to town for her, so be it. Like kissing Wyatt was a hardship. Ashley pressed her lips together. Like kissing Wyatt would win back her sister. He was going to leave, Ashley said. We're lucky his cell service was spotty. And that he hadn't tried to start his rental. Shane couldn't find a spark plug, much less remove one. See? Ashley's got this, Mom, Laurel said, dropping carefully into a kitchen chair. Her bag of knitting and worn-edged sketch pad sat in the middle of the narrow table. The apartment was tiny, 2 bedrooms, a bathroom and the small kitchen. The lobby served as their living room. Laurel claimed she liked cozy, and when she did so, it was in a tone that brooked no argument. Ashley doesn't have control of anything, Mom insisted. She always spoke with authority and conviction, even if she knew she was wrong. A man like Wyatt Halford isn't to be trifled with. We'll be lucky to get out of this mess without a lawsuit or a public relations fiasco. Her mother's warning struck a chord inside Ashley, but it was the same note she'd heard for years: control your image by not taking risks. Ashley was ready to hear a new tune. Heck, it was high time she banged the keyboards to make her own music. And she was trying. Demoralized because she'd been pigeonholed as a one-dimensional actress, Ashley was starting her own production company to create her own roles. Ginger Monroe Productions was going to option scripts and books for TV and film, oversee those ideas through to completion and then sell them to streamers, television networks and movie studios for distribution. Everyone just needs to take a breath and calm down. And by everyone, Ashley meant her mother. Ashley took her own advice, drawing a deep breath. She was reminded of Wyatt's subtle, contradictory scent. He should wear a musky cologne that marked him as dangerous. His kiss could certainly support that. Gabby barged in. That Jeremy is a jerk. He wasn't impressed by anything I said about the inn. He practically accused us of having dirty sheets and smelly toilets. Gabby. Mitch tried to enfold his daughter in his arms. What have I told you about cranky guests? To let their comments roll off my back. The preteen wanted nothing to do with her father's hug. She stomped toward her bedroom and slammed the door, only to open it again almost immediately. And Wyatt is super nice, except he thinks Ashley snores. She slammed the door once more. I don't snore. Ashley felt that needed to be said. Not often. Her mother couldn't let anything slide, but since they were sharing a room, Ashley couldn't argue. Welcome to the world of Hollywood assistants. Laurel reached for Mitch's hand, smiling softly. The first line of defense for celebs. I'm sorry that Jeremy was mean to Gabby. I can talk to him. Leave that to me, Mom said in a hard tone that promised retribution. She was rather fond of Gabby. You warned Gabby about certain Hollywood types, but I don't think she listened. Mitch brought Laurel's palm to his cheek and smiled at her with so much love that Ashley had to look away. Now that Laurel had Mitch, she didn't need Ashley. Or at least, Laurel wouldn't need her once the Wyatt issue was resolved. It was wrenching to realize she might never be close to her twin again. "How are you holding up, honey?" Mitch asked Laurel. "Laurel's fine. Let's return to the important issue of saving Ashley's career." Mom checked her pinging phone, missing Ashley's and Mitch's disapproving frowns. "Don't add fuel to this paternity bonfire, Ashley. You didn't have to kiss him." "I did. There was an opportunity to shake Wyatt up, and I took it. He's not going to be in your movie." Mom headed for the door, leading to the lobby. "That wasn't why I did it." Wyatt Halford with both feet firmly on the ground would be a force to be reckoned with. Ashley's plan was to keep him unsteady and keep him in second chance until he signed away his legal right to Laurel's babies. She'd seen the surprise in his eyes when they'd kissed. Goal accomplished. At least for now. But thanks for bringing us all down to earth, Mother. As the worst-case scenario thinker in the family, I live to serve. Mom made her exit with a dramatic flourish of her hand. When the door clicked closed behind her, Mitch's expression turned somber. "Wyatt's not going to agree, is he?" "He will," Ashley reassured him, because it was now her job to reduce the stress in Laurel's life. She and Laurel exchanged glances. What was her twin thinking? Ashley's gut clenched. She didn't know. When they'd been young and close, before Ashley's stardom separated them, they'd shared the infamous twin speak. But now, many years and many slights later, Ashley could only gauge Laurel's body language to infer what she was feeling. The raised brows. The pursed lips. A combination of disbelief and worry. About the unsigned paternity documents. "Don't let Wyatt's refusal bother you, Mitch." Laurel reached for her sketch pad. "You wouldn't have signed the papers either. Not without reading them through and understanding them completely." "True." Mitch's phone rang. He brightened. "It's the state's historic commission. I've got to take this. We're close to earning historic designations on another block of cabins." One swift kiss to Laurel's crown and he was out the door, too. He'd been trying to get several buildings in second chance on Idaho's historic registry to protect the town from being developed into a rich person's playground, like Aspen. "I'm not sure Wyatt should give up his parental rights," Laurel said, almost reluctantly, as if she wasn't sure how Ashley would react to her opinion. "That's a reversal," Ashley said with the utmost neutrality. In the few days she'd been here, she'd learned pregnant Laurel changed her mind more often than unpregnant Laurel. Her sister couldn't change one fact, though: Wyatt Halford would make co-parenting difficult. Ashley was sure of it. Why? Because Wyatt made movie production difficult. Why would co-parenting be any different? What happened to you worrying that he'd sue you for primary custody because of the way everything went down? Because he'd thought he'd been on a date with Ashley and hadn't been given a chance to decide whether he wanted to be a dad or not. He's just. He didn't, Laurel floundered, fingers clinging to the corners of her sketch pad. When we told him, he didn't overreact. Doesn't mean he won't be vindictive when the shock wears off. It had to be said. Mom wasn't the only glass-half-empty thinker in the family. Laurel fell silent, gaze focused downward. "If you want to give Wyatt a chance to co-parent," Ashley softened her tone. "If you think it's what's fair to the babies. You know I'll support whatever you want." But until Laurel decided for certain, Ashley was going to continue to push Wyatt out of the picture. "It would be easier if I knew what I wanted, wouldn't it?" Laurel's eyes were teary. "Or if I knew what was best for everyone. Maybe you just need to sit down and think about what's best for you. Forget wedding plans. Forget wardrobe designs for my film. Think about what your heart is telling you. Think about it now. I'll wait." Ashley sat down at the small kitchen table next to Laurel, pulling out her phone to check her messages. There were lots, including a request for her to visit a local horse trainer in an hour. She was trying to put a pre-production team in place for the Mike Moody film. And she was in several message groups with co-workers from previous productions. Laurel didn't say anything as Ashley scrolled, sorting and prioritizing. Her sister knew Ashley paid more than lip service to those she allowed in her social circle. When Ashley was 16, she broke up with her boyfriend only to wake up to the news the next day that he'd overdosed on pills. She'd collapsed. A few months later, the girl who was playing her best friend on the sitcom had tried to take her own life. She'd fallen apart. Could Ashley have done anything to help them? She didn't know. But she came out of that dark place to become the mother hen of every crew on every project. Ashley responded to every shared high and low on those message loops, and she reached out to those who'd gone silent to let them know how awesome they were. But as much as Ashley was proud of her mother hen role, it couldn't make up for the fact that she'd completely messed up her relationship with Laurel. When she was done sorting, Ashley set down her phone and gave Laurel her complete attention. "Well, he's a good kisser," Laurel said simply. She didn't so much as blush. So much for the Wyatt parenting debate. Ashley smiled indulgently. "I don't want to have this conversation with you." "Who will you have the conversation with?" "Mom." Laurel chuckled softly. "I'm not jealous. Mitch is a much better man. For me, anyway." Ashley made a non-committal noise. Was there any contest? Mitch was a former lawyer from Chicago, who'd bought this in so that he could raise his daughter in a small town. The man had heart and clearly adored her sister. On the other hand, Wyatt had a reputation for being difficult, a player and an actor who focused on wealth and the material expression of it. That lip balm was a smart move. You threw Wyatt a curveball. Laurel continued her not-so-subtle attempts at engaging Ashley in Wyatt-themed conversation. There was only one reason Laurel would bring up this topic. "You're worried I'm going to get hurt?" "Yes." Laurel's eyes watered. "When you let guys get close, they tend to sweep you off your feet." Ashley scoffed. This observation was only based on a sample size of one. "I'm so sorry I've put you in this situation. You've worked so hard for your success, and now our twin switch could be what you're most known for." That was one of Ashley's fears. But it took a back seat to Laurel's well-being. "No matter how this turns out, I'm not going to regret those two little nieces of mine." Ashley took her sister's hand in both of hers. "Don't you worry about me. I backed you into this corner by asking you to pretend to be me. There will be no more pretending for you. And no more hiding who I am and what I want from the world for me." Ashley needed to repeat that last part every time she was made to feel her opinions and dreams weren't important. In Hollywood, people often considered their dreams more important than anyone else's. No more pretending. Laurel passed the palm of her free hand over her belly. "Conveniently, after this, my hips are forever going to be wider than yours." "I envy you," Ashley blurted. She envied Laurel even as she'd been thinking home and family might not be in the cards for her. And since there was no taking back her words, she expanded on them. "You found the love of your life and you're going to be a mother. More importantly, you're going to do a better job at it than our mother did." Although she meant well, Genevieve had molded them to succeed rather than to accept who they were and how to find their own measure of happiness. Their mother's drive had almost broken Ashley. Or it would have if not for Laurel's unconditional support and sacrifice. "You think I'll be a good mom?" Laurel got all mushy-eyed, nose turning red. "I do. With all my heart. And those girls of yours are going to be best friends forever." Another point Ashley envied. "We're best friends." But Laurel's words rang hollow. "We used to be best friends." Ashley forced herself to speak the truth, to stare into her sister's eyes and acknowledge the loss. And I hope we'll be best friends again after I make up for everything. All the times Laurel had been pressured into a twin switch. All the times Laurel's needs had taken a back seat to hers. All the times their mother had forced Laurel to treat Ashley like an entitled celebrity instead of a sister. Ash. Laurel wiped away a tear. It takes a strong person to start out their career at age 5, much less thrive as an actor for 20+ years. Whatever slight you think you've caused me, I've forgiven you and moved on. I'm not asking for your forgiveness, although I'll take it. Now it was Ashley who wiped away tears. It's more important that I make things right between us. And to do that, she needed Wyatt to sign those paternity release papers. Whoa. Ashley brought her rented SUV to a stop in a swirl of dust, thoughts of Wyatt Halford fading at the sight before her. A palomino clamped its teeth on the brim of a little cowboy's hat and lifted it off the boy's head. The horse ambled over to a woman and put the straw hat on her head, receiving a cube treat as a reward. Said cowboy was Andrew, 5, and one of her cousin Sophie's kids. Said horse was in a large corral at the end of a dirt driveway that led to the ranch proper. Said woman had black hair and obvious skills as a horse trainer. Zeke Roosevelt, a slender, ginger-haired cowboy who was part of the crew of stock wranglers from the Bucking Bull Ranch that Ashley had hired for her film, gave her a friendly wave. He leaned against a corral fence post. A few feet away from him, a tall cowboy with a fringe of unruly black hair was twirling a lasso around his boots with an audience of young cowboys. Ashley got out and joined Zeke at the corral fence. Looks like you brought every boy associated with the Bucking Bull Ranch. 5 boys. All under the age of 10 or so. 2 of her cousin's kids, who were Zeke's stepsons, and the 3 Clark boys. Zeke chuckled. You try leaving a kid behind when they know you're coming to the bar D, even if they aren't your own. It's like coming to the circus. He caught the attention of the woman in the corral. Cassie here is a horse trainer. I thought you might be interested in what she can bring to your film. He pointed toward the man jumping in and out of the spinning lasso. And her brother Rhett is a champion roper. He coaches now. I promised the boys lessons if they did their chores around the ranch. Miss Ashley. Little Adam Clark jumped up and down, holding a stiff coiled rope that was almost as tall as he was. We're going to play a roping game. Want to watch? You bet I do. Ashley gave the boy a big smile. Despite having a long to-do list, she always got a kick out of these boys and their energy. Even the stoic Wyatt Halford would smile at their banter and antics. At the prospect of cowboy games, Andrew asked Cassie for his hat back and then scrambled between the corral rails to join the other boys. Rhett has an intriguing approach to keep kids interested in throwing lariats, Zeke explained. Speed drills and multiple targets, like an obstacle course. He's coached a couple of junior champions. They'll start in a minute. In the meantime, Cassie, why don't you show Ashley the kind of horse stunts she can expect? Sure. You always see horses going down in westerns. Cassie pointed finger guns at the palomino and said, bang. The horse lay down in the dirt, as if shot. Good boy. Wake up, Romeo, Cassie said. The palomino stood up and trotted over to Cassie for a treat. Cassie stroked the horse's neck while he ate and then backed up. Romeo, up. She threw up her arms. The horse stood briefly on his hind legs. Good boy. Romeo, bow. The palomino gingerly sank down on one leg and lowered his head. Come on, you show off. Cassie gave him another treat when he stood and then gave him a series of hearty pats. Ashley applauded. Well done. Thanks. Cassie came over to the railing with Romeo trailing after her. It helps that Romeo is a people pleaser. Did you have any stunts in mind? I haven't gotten that far in the planning stage, Ashley admitted. What in the world are you doing training horses out here in the middle of? She almost said nowhere but corrected herself mid-sentence. The Idaho mountains? It's in my blood, I suppose. Our family used to run a traveling carnival, complete with a petting zoo and animal performances. Cassie gestured to a barn behind the field the little ropers were in. We've still got a lot of the kiddie rides in storage. A small train, a miniature carousel. You know, that kind of thing. I tidied up a number of parts to use in roper training, Red cut in, pointing to a small wooden horse mounted on a hay bale and a metal train engine with a mannequin sitting at the controls. People seemed to like throwing at targets rather than the traditional practice steer. There was one of those, too. A metal frame with a horned bull's head on it. I like throwing at the train conductor. Adam jumped up and down, grinning. We've only got a fake bull to practice roping on at home. I want to throw, Mr. Rhett. When can we? Now. Rhett plucked Adam's cowboy hat off his head and then set it back in place. But first, what's the most important thing to remember when roping? Release. All the boys chimed in. Ashley smiled, infected by their enthusiasm. If Wyatt were here, it seemed unlikely that he'd enjoy it as much as she did. He was too uptight, stiffer in person than he was on screen. Yes, your release is the most important technique. Rhett nodded. First time through we're going to throw while standing on a hay bale. You get 3 throws at the 3 targets, train, horse and bull. We'll go oldest to youngest. Adam groaned and slowly fell to the ground, much the same way Romeo had done in his stunt. Wake me when it's my turn. Davy climbed up on the hay bale. A birth defect had left him with only one hand, but he didn't look as if it bothered him. He selected a coil of rope at his feet, leaving 2 others on the hay. With practiced ease, he began to twirl a loop over his head and his cowboy hat. And then he threw it toward the train conductor. It dropped smoothly over the mannequin's shoulders. Good job. Rhett gave the boy praise. I can do it faster, Charlie, Davy's younger brother, goaded. Davy let out a groan as he lunged for the second lariat. Speed. I stink when I throw fast. And as if to prove it, his next toss was rushed and went wide of the carousel horse's head. Rope me, Davy. Adam scrambled to his feet and ran out into the target area. That doesn't seem safe. Ashley took a step forward before Zeke stopped her. He'll be fine, Zeke said. They do better with live targets. One-upmanship and fun. Rhett nodded. It's that competitive instinct and passion for the sport that stops a roper from overthinking. And sometimes it makes them trust the throwing motion more than they otherwise would. My brother, the roping guru. Cassie scoffed, leaping onto Romeo's bare back. Or should I say he's a roping man's spiritual guide? But sure enough, Davy roped his brother. And later, when it was little Adam's turn, he returned the favor.
I'm not going to be pressured into signing anything by Ashley. Wyatt eased onto the hotel room bed after having been outside with her. The mattress sagged nearly as much as his spirits. He was supposed to be rehabbing inflamed muscles around his lower vertebrae and clearing his head during this break, not facing moral dilemmas and sleeping on lumpy mattresses. Do the right thing. Was he a father? He denied the accusation. But denial wouldn't straighten out his feelings about Laurel Monroe's pregnancy. If this story went public with confirmed sources, his chances of landing the lead role in a sci-fi thriller franchise would be ruined. Wyatt called his agent for an update on film negotiations. The news is grim, Brandon told him. Jess Watanabe's people told me he was put off by the Monroe baby rumor. Jess was going to direct a sci-fi thriller. He liked calm, serene sets and avoided controversy at all costs. The only drama he wanted was the kind that he filmed. Their decision regarding you as the lead is on hold. I know I didn't want you to go out there, but pictures of you dating slender, not pregnant Ashley Monroe is the best way to banish these rumors. I know you hate to share your personal life to the public, but in this case, please send me photos from my team to post on your official fan page. Wyatt suppressed a groan. That's playing right into the Monroe hands. I know, but we need some play, buddy. Wyatt promised to keep his agent in the loop before hanging up. We'll need more hangers. Jeremy surveyed the room's small closet. He'd already placed Wyatt's cowboy hat on the top shelf and an ironing board. Does your phone need charging? Do you want to shower and change into clean clothes? Wyatt stared at the ceiling. His personal assistant wasn't interested in Wyatt's career. He was interested in his wardrobe and his calendar and keeping people at a distance, the way he'd done with little Gabby earlier. Jeremy's role was clear. Wyatt's path out of this mess was not. He wished he could just close his eyes and make the entire situation disappear. After I unpack, I'll head downstairs so you can rest. Jeremy did a double take, his attention caught by something outside the second-story window. Rest. Sometimes Wyatt felt like the pampered creature his father accused him of being. Point of fact, he was tired. It had taken nearly 2 days of travel to get here from South America, where he'd been filming. He couldn't remember the last time he'd had a full 8 hours sleep. But rest? The Monroes had a plan. And he'd bet it wasn't a plan where he was a priority. Wyatt could feel a double cross in his bones better than his coal-mining father could feel the earth tremble before a cave-in. Jeremy continued to stare out the window the way most people stared at their cell phones during a tweet storm. Jeremy, do you remember when the little girl was babbling about our view? About the sawtooths and the wildflowers? Oh, yeah. He remembered. She'd reminded him of his older sister Natalie when she was a kid, who could talk a mile a minute if you let her. Much as it pained him to do, Wyatt needed to get back to West Virginia to see his family before he began shooting his next film. Do the right thing. He and his family were no longer close. A few years ago, he bought his 2 older sisters and his father each a small ranch shed, and his mother a fancy headstone at the cemetery. The gifts didn't make up for his estrangement, but they eased his sense of duty. His mother had always told him that family came first. But his father? You'll regret spending money on me when folks realize you got no talent other than your good looks, his father had said when Wyatt handed over the keys. He'd never been supportive of Wyatt's chosen occupation. If it hadn't been for his mom and older sisters hauling him around as a kid for modeling and small roles in commercials, Wyatt might never have pursued acting at all. He'd be working as a miner now, riding horses and ATVs on the weekends. But they had, and his father's staunch disapproval fueled his need to be the best action star Hollywood had ever known. You should come see this, Jeremy said. I didn't pay attention to the scenery when I was driving. And Wyatt had been dozing the last half of the trip. He rolled out of bed and sauntered the few steps to the window. The Salmon River meandered past the inn, its rocky bottom clear from above. On the opposite bank, the carpet of wildflowers began, blue and yellow blossoms swaying in the breeze. Beyond that, a pair of moose meandered across the meadow as if out for a leisurely stroll. And across the valley, the grandiose Sawtooth Mountains rose up to the sky. It was postcard pretty. But according to the media, so was Wyatt. The difference was that nature had created all that harmonious beauty spontaneously, while Wyatt's presentation was polished by a team of stylists, hair, fashion, fitness, social media. Sometimes he felt there was nothing genuine left about him, inside or out. Nothing but his broken-in cowboy boots and his cowlick. He returned to the bed, muscles protesting, feeling twice his 30 years. He shifted, lying sideways across the mattress, his head, neck and shoulders hanging off one side of the bed, his feet hanging off the other. What's the likelihood we can set up my inversion table in the corner? He needed to release pressure on his vertebrae. Slim to none with 2 beds in here. Jeremy unzipped a suitcase and began shaking out Wyatt's shirts. Do we have to stay? It's so provincial. It was a small town, much like the one Wyatt had grown up in. Other than this being the setting for the Ashley Laurel debacle, he had no gripe with it. Wyatt stared at the log wall as he tried to relax his muscles to maximize the stretch. But all he saw was Ashley's smile while she kissed him. All he heard was her play on the situation as a movie script. All he felt was her softness as she filled his arms. She surprised him when he thought no one could anymore. Wyatt Halford from West Virginia would have grinned. Wyatt Halford from Hollywood scowled.
Thanks for meeting me here. Shane addressed the group he'd assembled at Egbert's fly fishing shop at the north end of town. Ashley checked the time, wondering what Wyatt was doing. Or more specifically, what he was thinking about her movie-making venture and that kiss. She frowned. The only wondering she needed to be doing about Wyatt involved speculation as to when he'd signed those paternity papers. On the back porch, Egbert shouted instructions to a pair of tourists who'd stopped to try their luck fishing in the Salmon River. Flick your wrist. Yes, snap it. Careful of the trees. Pick up that slack with your free hand. There. Good. Better. Isn't that relaxing? It didn't sound relaxing to Ashley, but it was a welcome distraction from thoughts of handsome actors. She sat on a bench between her brother, Jonah, and Gabby. "You've got 10 minutes, Shane." And then Ashley had a call with the man she wanted to hire as her director of photography. "I won't waste words." Shane was in casual corporate mode today, wearing a black polo shirt and tan khakis. He might no longer be running Monroe luxury hotels, but he was running things in Second Chance, trying to revitalize the town's economy. And he'd challenged the 11 other Monroes who'd inherited with him to do something, anything, to help him. At the end of the year, the 12 Monroe heirs were voting on what to do with the town, keep or sell. Currently, the vote was split down the middle. Ashley was voting to sell. She could use the influx of cash to fund her movie production. At the same time, she was rooting for Mitch to obtain historical protections for certain structures so that whoever bought up the land couldn't bulldoze all Second Chance's charm and history. "We've hooked the big fish." Shane meant Wyatt. "And now we're going to reel him in." Shane was wasting time with metaphors. He tended toward the melodramatic when he had an audience. Ashley rolled her eyes. "We got Wyatt in town. Now our goal is for him to perform in the Old West Festival," Shane continued. He'd changed the date of his little street fair so many times, but now it was the day after Laurel's wedding. "And to do that, I thought the goal was to get him to be in our movie," Jonah said only half seriously, because Jonah was rarely serious about anything. He nudged Ashley. "I thought the goal was to get him to sign Laurel's paternity papers," Ashley said with a straight face, joining in. She nudged Gabby. "I don't know what you guys are talking about." Gabby grinned because she was a player when it came to yanking Shane's chain. She was such a great addition to the family. "My only goal was to meet Wyatt Halford. I don't even know why I'm here." Shane washed a hand over his face. "I'm going to assume this is red-headed humor. Because those seated before him all had red hair, while Shane's was walnut brown. Focus, all of you. If we can link Wyatt's name with Second Chance, tourism goes up. If we link his name to the Old West Festival, Ashley gains leverage in Hollywood. And if Wyatt becomes fond of the script Jonah's written, Wyatt might decide to play Mike Moody on the big screen, double bonus for Ashley, Jonah, and Second Chance. But that still doesn't mean he'll give up his legal claim to Laurel's babies," Ashley pointed out. "That's where Operation Snapparazzi comes in." Shane smiled at Gabby. The duo had created a network of residents to pose as Wyatt Halford fans, snapping his picture with Ashley around Second Chance and posting them to social media as a way to boost attendance at the Old West Festival this weekend. Not to mention, the world would be abuzz with curiosity if Wyatt and Ashley were together in a charming, romantic mountain setting. He'll be so relieved at the positive press your fake dating creates that he'll sign those paternity papers. "Trust me. Now you've done it," Egbert called from the back porch. "Your lure's caught on that log." "No. No. Don't step in the—" There was a splash. "Don't fight the current," he shouted. "It'll take you to a sandy shoal down by the inn." And then Egbert muttered, "And this is why I insist clients wear life preservers." And wasn't the situation out back an apt metaphor for the state of things in Second Chance? It didn't matter if the Monroes were Second Chance's safety net. Sleepy towns, like rookie fly fishermen, were just not bankable. And bankrolls funded films. "I want to trust you, Shane," Ashley said, channeling her mother's inflexible tone. "But I don't trust Wyatt to play into your hands. He was just too stubborn. Why can't you write a press release about the gold you found in Mike Moody's hideout?" She checked the time again. "That will create more interest in Second Chance and your festival. And Wyatt might find it intriguing enough to read the script and sign on. I don't want him to feel like he's being manipulated and then put us into a grudge match where the only move he has is his right to those girls. Luckily, he doesn't seem interested in them at the moment. And he was on record in the press as saying he wasn't ready to settle down." Shane crossed his arms over his chest, brow furrowing. Shane was a dear, but he preferred unquestioned leadership to collaboration. "Or we could just hand Wyatt the script and cut to the chase," Jonah said crisply. "I tried to leave him a copy when we tracked him down in South America, but Shane wouldn't let me." Wyatt would have turned you down in South America. Shane's furrowed deep into a frown. And then we wouldn't get any buzz from people wondering what he's doing out here. Okay. I agree with your handling of buzz in principle, Ashley allowed. However, Operation Snapparazzi goes too far. Not only is it invasive of Wyatt's privacy, it's deceitful. I'm, trying to change my tactics in that regard. No snapparazzi? Gabby drooped, pulling at a string in the hem of her teal sundress. That's the best part. Other than Wyatt Halford being here, that is. She was the Operation Lookout, the spy who'd alert Shane when Wyatt and Ashley were together. Someone's got to post pictures of Wyatt to social media, Shane pointed out. And it can't come from a Monroe. I'm not including Gabby. She can post, even though she'll be an official Monroe family member after the wedding. Sweet. The preteen glowed. No more practically a Monroe. I want to go on record as saying this is a bad idea, Ashley said. Imagine if Wyatt found out that on top of Laurel pretending to be me 6 months ago, that now I'm positioning him for photo opportunities. But since there was a snowball's chance that it might work, Ashley was willing to let Shane give it a try.